Okay, welcome back. We're now going to take a look at lesson 6. And again, I'm not going to go over through these notes in detail. You can read through them yourself. But I just want to take a moment to look at this business of elision and aspiration. Okay, elision is this word here. Okay, to elide something means basically to cut it off short. Okay, and then very frequently you'll see in Greek that when you have a word that ends in a vowel, okay, and another one starts with a vowel, that the vowel of the former word will be lost. Okay, so for instance, apo, okay, when it precedes another verb beginning with a vowel, that's usually when it will happen. You might just see an op, okay, and this is something you just have to get used to. It's a little bit of a pain when you first start out, but you will get used to it quickly, okay. The word anti, which is a rare preposition, which kind of means instead of or in place of, you might just get ant. Okay. Dia, which means through, you might just get d. Okay. Epi will often reduce to ep, kata to kat, meta to met, para to par, hoopo to hoop. Okay. So you get the basic idea. Now here's the problem with elision. There's no real hard, fast rule for when you see it. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Okay, there's no real regular standard of when a Greek verb or word will elide. Okay, so you just have to be on the lookout for it, and that's really the only advice I can give you about it. Now, here's the other thing that happens, and this is something to prepare us especially for verbs, compound verbs. Compound verbs are simply verbs that have prepositions attached to them in the front. Okay, we'll be messing with those here in the weeks ahead. But for now, just take a look at what happens when you see a rough breathing word that follows a preposition. Okay, so op with a smooth breathing verb or word. I mean, not a verb necessarily, but a word will just maintain an op. Okay, so remember, anytime a word starts in a vowel, it's either a smooth breather or a rough breather. Okay, if it's a smooth breather, it just stays the same. If it's a rough breather, that means, remember, you say like a ha, like that. Okay, and so one of the things Greek will do is, in order to make that pronunciation go smoother, it will soften the noun. It will aspirate the preposition here. Okay, so op will become off. Okay, op will become off. So for instance, if you if you take a what's a good word? Okay, so op. So for instance, if I had a hagios, okay, I wouldn't see op hagios, okay. Instead of seeing op hagios, I would say off hagios, okay. In other words, this would become simply a pie like this, a phi like this. Okay, do you understand? In other words, it just softens the transition. That's really all it does. Okay. Same deal with the letter tau. Okay, when it precedes a verb beginning with a noun, with a vowel, okay, and that's a rough breather, okay, like hagio, I might get anthagio, okay, as opposed to anthagio. Okay, do you see? It just kind of more smoothly runs the words together. Okay, so the tau will kind of soften to a theta. Okay, just like the pi softened to a phi. Okay, D will be unchanged. Okay, because that's already pretty fluid. Okay, ep, okay, which is short from just epi, will do the same thing. It will become an F. Okay, so if I had a ha, say getting ready for a a noun like logos, it wouldn't be ep ha logos. It might be f ha logos. Okay, or something like that. Okay, kata will become kath. Okay, if it precedes a rough breather. Meta, which means with or after, will become meth. Okay, para doesn't really change. Hoopo becomes hoof. Okay, so again, it's not so much that this is really difficult to learn. Just be on the lookout for this. So that way, when you see these kind of weird-looking symbols, you can kind of mentally trace them back to the vocab words, which are these prepositions here, which you see a lot of. All of these you'll see a lot of. Okay. All right. Now, back to principal parts. Okay, let's take a look now at some more of these principal parts. All right, particularly this one here with a zeta. Okay, a zeta. We haven't yet seen that. Okay, but remember, this is not very different than luo. Remember, luo was just luo, luso, elusa, leluca, lelumai, eluthane. See here, it's very similar. Okay, except that in this case, the zeta softens to a sigma. So it goes from perazzo, which means to test or to tempt or to try or attempt. Okay, perazzo, perasso. Okay. And then finally a perasa for the third principal part, peperaka, peperasma. You pick up the sigma again very often in the fifth principal part for a verb like this that has a zeta stem. Okay, and a perasthane. Okay, but again, this is the same basic pattern that we saw with luo. Not a whole lot different here. So perazzo, perasso, e perasa, peperaka, peperasmai, e perasthane. Okay, not terribly different here, but just, you know, so you know what happens, you know, when you see a zeta here. Okay, but it actually is pretty regular. Okay, you know, once you see one of them, you see what the pattern will be for a lot of them. Okay, so hagiadzo, the more common word, which means to sanctify. Okay, which is used in the Lord's Prayer. Sanctify or hallowed be thy name. Okay, so hagiadzo, hagiaso, hagiasa, hagiaka, hagiasmai, hagiasthane. Okay, so first of all, the zeta part is perfectly predictable based on the analogy of perazzo. Okay, so it softens to a sigma, and you see a sigma, then kappa, then the sigma picks up again in principal part 5 and 6. Okay, now, the only thing that's a little bit different here is this is the first verb we've looked at that actually begins with a vowel. Okay, with a vowel. The only effect that that has is that instead of getting the epsilon here, which we've gotten in every one we've seen so far, we don't get an epsilon. Instead, we get an elongated vowel. Okay, so typically the alpha or the epsilon verbs that begin with that letter in the stem will simply become an eta. And instead of the reduplication in principal part 5 and 6, which we normally would get, okay, you don't get you just get an elongated vowel again. Okay, so hagiaka, hagiasmai, okay, and then hagiasthane. Okay, so hagiadzo, hagiaso, hagiasa, hagiaka, hagiasmai, hagiasthane. Okay, so again, don't freak out whenever you see a verb beginning in a vowel. Okay, this is the pattern here. The reduplication and the what's called the augment, which you see in the third principal part, are just handled a little bit differently. Okay, but again, there's no real irregularity there. That's simply a different combination that could come up. Okay, and we're going to see something quite similar for the verb elpidzo, which means to hope. Okay, notice you got the zeta stem here, so we get elpidzo, elpisso, elpisa. See, you get, instead of the augment there, it already had an epsilon in the stem, so you can't simply have an epsilon in the third principal part. You get an elongation instead. Okay, so elpisa, elpica, with again an elongated vowel. There's no reduplication. You can't reduplicate a verb that begins with a vowel. Okay, elpismai, okay, and elpisthane. Okay, everyone okay with that? I hope. Nothing big there. It's just that you know, a verb that begins with a vowel it works a little bit differently. Okay, you can't get a normal reduplication or a normal augment. Instead, you get just an elongation here, here, and here. Other than that, it's pretty darn predictable. Okay, and in fact, once you do a few of those, that pattern will be quite predictable too. So now you can handle that one as well. So just get in the habit of saying these again, and just get in the habit of putting these verbs through their paces, and then you know you're going to really quickly internalize these patterns. Okay, don't spend a lot of time trying to memorize these as though they were rules. Okay, you know, that's not really what I want you to do. I just want you to kind of absorb these through the art of just saying and reciting and reading, okay, and listening. Okay, so again, theridzo, the verb to harvest, same thing. You get the zeta stem here, although now in this case you don't get a normal reduplication. Well, let's see what happens here. So you get therizo, theriso, etherisa. Okay, so far so good. Everything's predictable here. But instead of the normal reduplication, we would expect thetherica, thetherismai, etheristhane. What happens? Okay, I get tetherica, tetherismai, etheristhane. Why? Well, you can kind of guess, right? Saying two thetas in a row is kind of awkward. Okay, and so naturally, languages tend to smooth out otherwise would be awkward pronunciations, okay, just for the sake of ease of pronunciation. And that's exactly what happens here. Okay, you generally don't see two aspirated syllables in a row in a reduplication. So instead of the theta, we get a tau, which is sort of a hard theta. Okay, so therizo, theriso, etherisa, tetherica, tetherismai, etheristane. Okay, but still it's like luo. Luo, luso, elusa, leluca, lelumai, eluthane. Okay, hagiazo, hagiaso, hagiasa, hegiasa, hegiaka, hegiasmai, hegiasthane. Okay, so again, don't try to memorize these patterns as rules. Just get in the habit of saying them, and then the rules will become second nature to you, just like this is your own language. Okay, just kind of absorb. Okay, let's take a look at another one here. This is the word crypto, which is a pretty common word meaning to hide. That's where we get the word cryptic from in English. Oftentimes these Y's, these upsilons here will become Y's in English. Okay, but see in mind how this goes. Okay, so crypto, and notice here instead of the sigma, what happens? Okay, if I were to stick a sigma in here, I would have a pi sigma tau. So crypso. Okay, but a pi and a sigma actually is a word, is a letter. Okay, and it's a psi, a psi. Okay. So psi is basically just a combination of the pi and the sigma. So instead of the pi sigma, I have a nice letter for that in Greek, namely the psi. So instead of crypso with a pi sigma, I have crypso with a psi here. Okay, but other than that, that's exactly what you'd expect. So crypto, crypso, ecrypsa. Okay, so far so good. This would be exactly what you'd expect. The only thing you wouldn't have expected at first would be the psi, and then once you see it, it's like, oh, okay, that seems clear that that's what would happen. Okay, now in the fourth principal part, instead of the kappa, we get a phi here. Okay, and that's because we started with a psi here. All right, so whenever we have a psi in the second and third, generally speaking, we'll get a phi in the fourth. Okay, don't ask me why that is. It's just the way it works out. Okay, so crypto, crypso, ecrypsa, kekrufa, kekrumai, ekrubane. Okay. Don't ask me why it's ecrubane and not ecruphthane. Okay, there probably is a form of attested ecruphthane. That's just usually not what you see. Okay, so it's just one of those things. That one's a little bit irregular. That sixth principal part there. But again, once you say it a few times and you see it, it'll be no surprise when you run across it in the text. Okay, so one more time. Crypto, crypso, ecrypsa, kekrufa, kekrumai, ekrubane. Okay, so again, keep in mind sometimes we get a phi in the fourth principal part as opposed to a kappa, which is what we've seen so far mostly. All right. Okay, but you see here that this pattern actually holds up very nicely for words that we've already seen, namely blepo. Blepo is a very common word which means to see or to look at. Blepo, blepso, eblepsa. Okay, so exactly what we'd expect based on the pattern. Beblefa, okay, well, phi is sort of what we'd expect now. Beblemai, okay, and eblephthane. Okay, eblephthane. Okay, notice you can have a phi and a theta together. It sounds a little bit awkward to us, but apparently they could say it okay. So blepo, blepso, eblepsa, beblefa, beblemai, eblephthane. Okay. Grapho, this is the first time we've seen a phi in the stem here, but again, not a whole lot of difference here. Grapho, grapso, egrapsa, gegrapha. Okay, notice the phi again comes back when you see the psi in this third principal part. Okay, gegramai, egrapthane. Okay, again, these should be fairly straightforward to you. Just get in the habit of saying them. Okay? Get in the habit of internalizing them. Don't fret about all the rules. Don't fret so much about the spelling. Just get in the habit of seeing and hearing and saying. Okay? So, all right. Well, good enough. I don't want to give you any more this week, but I think that's enough for you to chew on. Okay? Just spend a little bit of time on these principal parts. Okay? Try to do it every time you go over your paradigms, which should be ideally every day you should recite them. They only take a few minutes to go through, but it will be well worth it, and you will see tremendous dividends if you can get in the habit of doing that every single day. And in a month, you're going to see a real difference in your ability to handle this stuff. Okay? All right. Well, very good. That's all I have for you now. I'll see you later.